Preparing a live stream. So we should be on, I think.
It is not at the location that we had set up. So, welcome everybody if you're watching this. If you're waiting for us in another video, let me tell everybody in that chat where to go. We are trying something new, and actually this says upcoming. I don't know if we actually are live, but welcome if we are. Let me see if that's worth the location that we had. Yep, we're on a different location. All right, well, you know, what do we know?
Well, how do we get the right location to go over there?
No idea. We'll have to ask somebody. But I just posted in the chat of the other one of where we are. So, you know, I guess if you really want to know, if you really want to chat to us, which nobody does, then you have to.
Oh man,
something really wrong now. I don't even know where I went. Anyway.
Great.
So yeah, this is the full 42, guys. This is what it's about.
Yep, this is how it all starts and starts going downhill.
Someday we're gonna do it real, like we're gonna be like, hey, we're live, and just go right into it and not be like, is it working? But what are you gonna do?
It's got to be fun just to see amateurs do amateurish stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at least you know what you're getting right off the bat.
That is true. You're getting everything. This isn't the polished 42. Yeah. This is the full, the bad, the ugly. This is everything.
Unedited, barely scripted 42.
Wow, this is good.
Cool. I can't even get back to the chat, actually. So I'm in a little bit of a, nope, don't want to switch accounts. So I just want to get to where I can watch the current chat in case anybody says anything. And then we'll get going here. Oh, here we are, 4.0. And okay, I got it up. Okay, so I can see if anybody says anything. Anybody finds us through our convoluted way. Maybe I should at least put it in our, by the way, if you're on Facebook, we do have a Facebook group, which I just posted in. So it's a better way to find us. I'll even get rid of the other one so people don't get lost.
Perfect.
All right, so, all right, enough fiddling with that, and we'll just talk.
Buy a drink.
Okay, so today we were going to, well, first we have our guesses, right? We always start off an episode trying to guess something about the other person. And Mike, I don't remember who went first last time. You want to go?
I will go.
Awesome.
So my guess is about board games. And if Chris could pick a board game world to live in, which would it be? Now, we know about Star Wars. We haven't really ventured down the Star Trek thing because I'm a rookie in that. But I would say, based on your enthusiasm of Dune, that it might be the Dune universe or Lords of Waterdeep in a Dungeons and Dragons universe. I don't know if it would be like Castle Ravenloft or like one of those things, but
I have some questions.
Okay.
All right, so just living in the universe or getting to experience the adventure of that universe? Because those are two different things.
I would feel if you're living in that universe, you're experiencing the adventure, right? Whether you're a trader or a merchant or...
you could just be, I took one in the knee guard at, standing guard at the castle for the rest of your life and nothing happening, right. But you're saying, like, do you want to be the main character in this world or something, right?
I don't know about that. I think there are worlds where you don't want to be the main character because it's not necessarily a good thing for you.
I mean, like you said, Lords of Waterdeep. I'm like, man, people are like dying of infections in that world.
True.
Well, I mean, it's D&D, so you can go to the temple and get healed by clerics or whatever.
Yeah,
but
maybe you're a cleric in the D&D world.
yeah, but like the NPCs in my Pathfinder game that I play, they don't have the money to get healed at clerics and stuff like that. So if I get to be a class and all that stuff, that's a little different, if I get to be adventurer. So what you say? You said, are you just giving me those 4 choices, or I could pick any board?
Nope, that was my guess. I was going down. Star Wars seems easy, right? Even for me, Star Wars, like, that'd be a good guess.
Hmm.
But I went with Dune, and then I landed on D&D as a whole, more like the Lords of Waterdeep stuff.
I actually feel like Dune is a pretty dark world. I don't think I would enjoy that kind of. It's got all of the like the oppression of the people from all these high up governments and stuff like that, and then on top of just being in I don't know, it's kind of like a miserable little world. Like it's all corrupt and everything. I don't think I'd enjoy that. Not nearly as much as Star Wars anyway. Star Trek and Star Wars, those are hard to. You know what? Let me put those off to the side real quick, if you don't mind me digressing a little bit, because I do like the idea of board game worlds. Just looking at that, and when you bring in IPs, that's just such another, So let me take major IPs out for a minute and just kind of think about it. Like for instance, I've just been playing Sleeping Gods, and that's kind of a really interesting, exploring the world and finding new things and stuff. That would be a cool world to adventure in. It's kind of like if you played his other above and below stuff, well, it's not exactly that world. I think it's the first one he's done that isn't that in that world, or no, that's not true. He's had a few others, but maybe the first story one he's done that isn't in that world. But it does feel kind of like that once they get in there. So, yeah, it's really, it would be something like that, something where I get to explore. So going back to Star Wars and Star Trek, I love the exploration of Star Trek. The fact that you get to, go and explore new worlds. But I don't like the military aspect of it, that I would have to be in Starfleet uniform. I'd have to fill out my reports, my TPS reports or whatever it is, all this stuff, and, answer to the officers. I'm too chaotic. I don't like authority, so I'm not going to do well on a starship like that. However, being a free agent on my own ship flying around in Star Wars, that sounds a little bit more like me, but there's no real exploration there. So
sure.
I guess you could be like an archaeologist, something like that. But, unless you're Indiana Jones, that's not really exciting, which is what I found out whenever I started looking into it going into college.
Right, yeah.
Because I thought about doing it, obviously a child of 80s movies and early 90s stuff, thought about archaeology, but, it's really just how long do you want to live out in the desert and sweep dirt off of the ground?
Right. How long do you want to live out in the desert and sweep dirt off the ground?
If I'm not going to be carrying a revolver and a whip and a cool hat, and I don't look good in those hats anyway, and I'm not going to be rolling through, ancient ruins and jumping around past stuff, if I'm not going to be running into that, that's, not the path for me. So yeah, I think I gotta go Star Wars if we're going to keep the IPs in there.
Cool. That seemed too easy. I didn't want to go with Star Wars. That seemed easy, so I went a little bit deeper. But that was my first.
What was the fourth one you said? You said Star Wars, Star Trek, Dune, and what was the other one?
D&D.
Oh, D&D. Yeah. Waterdeep. We've talked about class and stuff before, right? So, or last episode, which class we would be. If I could be a sorcerer and have all that magic and stuff, it'd be pretty cool. That's a good one. As long as I get to be a leveled character. I don't want to be an NPC who dies of dysentery.
Sure. Fair enough. We'll make sure that doesn't happen to you.
So how about you?
It's funny you said Sleeping Gods because Ryan makes an amazing world, and I really found myself sucked into Above and Below when I first played it. I love that exploration nature, finding stuff out. But I'm too much of a Star Wars fan. I would love to live somewhere in the Star Wars universe, whether it's even on Endor with the teddy bears, like somewhere in there would just be fun.
No, well, if I'm a character in Star Wars, I have to have my own ship, or at least work in a crew that is kind of freelance, kind of Firefly-ish.
Sure.
Going around getting jobs, and I mean that is the most exciting part to me. You want to fight fight the Empire as rebels, or either way, I don't really want to get involved in the Galactic War and all that stuff. I just want to be like a Han Solo character making a buck, and now I don't want to deal in spice like Han Solo was. We don't forget that he was a drug runner.
He sure was. Yeah.
But
you're the Switzerland of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I just want to be a neutral, party kind of going around and discovering new things, meeting new aliens.
Fair
Exploration.
Enough. Cool.
Now, if you put me in the Star Trek universe and I don't have to be part of Starfleet, that makes it really hard. Just the whole being in a military thing for me, I'd be kicked out. I can't follow rules.
Yeah, it's just living in the universe. You don't have to be part of Starfleet. Like, I'm not asking you, would you be red or gold or blue shirt?
Yeah. I actually wondered if because Star Trek, the Starfleet puts so much emphasis on exploration. I always wondered if they have independent explorers who go out and report back like, hey, I found these planets and here's the stuff I found, or do they say if you're in the Federation, you can't go to these new worlds until we've gone there to establish blah, blah, blah. Too many rules.
Fair enough.
All right. So my guess for you, okay, so this is the hard part about doing these guesses is that we don't know certain things about each other. In fact, right before this episode, you had some internet trouble. We should say that, by the way. If this show ends real quick, it might be because you have some internet troubles, and we'll address it next episode. Maybe we'll do one in the middle of the week or something to make up for it if it ends too soon. But that's the problem with going live, right?
Sure.
So the cartoons of basically childhood and even now is what kind of popped in my head when I started thinking about it. But then I realized I don't know all the cartoons you've seen.
Okay.
And before this, I asked you when you didn't have internet, I was like, exactly how old are you? Trying to figure out where, and you didn't answer me. So I had to go with, I picked 6 cartoons.
Okay.
And I want to know what world you would live in. So I'm going to guess which one. Okay.
Okay.
And the problem is I don't know if you've seen all of these. I think we've talked about a couple of them, but okay. So first one, Samurai Jack.
Okay.
Next one, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
And that's not just I get to live in New York. That's, I live in New York where there's mutants and maybe I'm one of them or, part of that whole thing. Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay.
Adventure Time. Went a little weird with that one. Gargoyles. or Rick and Morty.
Hmm.
And now I have to make a guess though. I think, although I think you're a fan of Samurai Jack, I think we talked about it or not. Right? But as far as like actually living in it, I'm gonna have to go with Avatar, Airbender. What would you say? That looks like I was wrong.
So
My record.
my viewership of those is extremely limited. I've seen some of most of them, and I've seen all of one of them. But of that, I would have to pick the Turtles.
Oh, really? Okay. Is that the one that you've seen all of?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was released in theaters when I was younger. I remember going to see it and having little baby Splinter and Shredder kicking them and hating Shredder for the rest of my life. It'd be fun to be in there.
That was my second pick. I thought it was too close to real life because of New York and all that stuff. So
Sure.
I went a little crazy with it.
I do like Gargoyles because one of them was named Bronx, which is where I was born. So I gravitate towards him a little bit more. Living in the Airbender universe would be kind of cool if I had the powers to play around with the elements.
Yeah, because there are NPCs in there basically that don't have any bending and stuff. But yeah, if you were a bender, basically, it's an adventurer kind of thing. That is one. Is Gargoyles in New York as well?
Yeah.
How
The Gargoyles are named after the boroughs.
Yeah, I picked 2 New York. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. I would have to say, although I don't know much about it, I would definitely enjoy Rick and Morty because of the stuff they get into, as long as I could be Rick.
Right. Everybody else dies, right?
Right.
Everybody else gets messed up or hurt or victimized, and he's the only one that's always on top of it.
Yep.
That's fair.
And he's usually drunk.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, some of these worlds, while interesting to watch, aren't always the best. Like even Samurai Jack, like that's kind of a dark world that he goes walking through and stuff. Even just being him would be pretty dark, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I knew that you'd. I didn't know, but I guess that you'd at least be familiar with them or a few episodes, all of these. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm definitely old school 80s. You give me the Thundercats, you give me He-Man, you give me that stuff.
I almost went that way with it, but I was like, like He-Man is early 80s.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like 82, I'm going to say, 84 maybe.
Yep. Voltron.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been watching the new Voltron, by the way?
Haven't gone there yet.
The Netflix new Voltron is actually pretty good. I haven't finished the first season yet, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, continuing on. So. Yeah, well, I broke my record. I mean, I broke the record, you know.
Yeah, your record is what, 2? 2 in a row?
How do you say it? I messed it up. Yeah, just 2 in a row.
Good.
I messed it up.
Can't all be perfect, Chris.
Did you guess Star Wars for me?
It was my first, but it seemed too easy. So I stopped myself from saying that would be the thing and dug a little based on our conversation last time about the D&D tropes. And it just seemed like it would be one of those 2. And you were really into the Dune game. So I thought maybe like I'd hit it with that one, but I ultimately landed on some sort of D&D universe.
Right. I mean, like I was saying, there's a lot of worlds that are fun to watch, but I don't think Dune is one I would want to be in for any real reason. It's the same thing for like Alien, like fun to watch. I don't want to be in Aliens, right?
Well, same thing with Star Trek, right? Like you don't have to be part of Starfleet. You could be a Klingon. If you're going to just implant yourself into the world, and it could be it's like, what planet would you live on in Star Wars? I mean, this rabbit hole could go.
Right.
Would you be Empire or Rebel? Where would you be? Like that would be.
Right. Well, I already talked about what I would do in Star Wars. I would be in betweener, just kind of, you know, my own person, fly around. What would you do?
Do we have the choice?
That's a good point. I mean, maybe everybody's thought was they were going to be the in-betweener, and then the Empire does something, and you don't have to, but you like I can't just be that anymore. I have to join, right?
Right.
That's a good point. I mean, I guess in a extreme environment like that, you can always just hang out in Tatooine where nobody cares.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, why not just chill out in the cantina and listen to the band and drink some milk?
Yeah, it's weird. Like some blue milk. It's weird that I guess whenever you watch episode 4, the world is so, or the Empire is so dark that if you haven't chosen a side, that says something about your personality.
Yeah.
That you've chosen to allow this stuff to go on without doing something says something about you.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I pick episode 1 times? At least then I got like 30. Is it 30? No, it's like 20 years before all the bad stuff starts happening.
Sure.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll start over and start getting them right next time.
Okay, we'll hold you to that.
Done cartoons.
I got a good one for next week.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Tell me now so I can mess it up for you.
Not at all.
So we titled this our top 5 fantasy games, board games to be specific.
Yeah.
How'd you enjoy trying to find these out?
Yeah. This is a family show, so I'm not gonna say what I told you earlier. I hate making top 5 lists, top 10 lists. Even top 20 would be difficult. I have my one, which was easy to pick, but then trying to limit it to top 5 is just hell for me because there's so many. I mean, it's situational, right? Like, look at where would you live in Star Wars? Well, is it pre-Empire, post? Like, everything is situational, and there's so many great games or so many great movies or so many great comics. How do you just? I have a hard time doing that.
My guess is that we're not going to have a single matchup on our list. I mean, it's only 5 games each, and I have an honorable mention, of course. And I have a few that I mentioned and why they're not on the list too that we can talk about. But my guess is that we're not going to match. First of all, there's a lot of games that are just covered under fantasy.
Yep.
And I based mine off of how quickly I say yes to playing it.
Okay.
So, do you want to start or me?
Fair enough.
Yeah, start with 5 and go down to 1.
Sure. I'll talk about my. I actually only picked one mention because it made sense. Instead of going over like 17 different ones that almost made the list. And my mention is Magic. Magic landed in the fantasy list, and it was really the first thing that drove me to the fantasy world. When I was in high school, a friend introduced me to it. We cracked open a revised deck, and he's like, I'd teach you the game. It's just going to be easier if you just play. And we just, with the dragons and the royal assassin, like it was this world that was opened up, and it's still here. I still have hundreds of thousands of cards dating back from when I first started. And I still enjoy it, but I couldn't put it in my top 5 because I feel frustrated with there are other things about it that frustrate me, like the barrier to entry, and people will win when they have money because they can buy those ridiculous cards that just break the game. And I don't do it for that. Like, even with the Scythe game we've been playing, and I've mentioned this, I don't look up tournament play and look up like strategies for my faction. Like, I want to learn it. And I just feel Magic it's done its thing for me. It introduced me to this entire world. So I had to bring that up because I found it interesting that it was in the fantasy list.
Oh, it totally makes sense. I didn't even think about it. I have a very limited experience with Magic. I didn't really get Magic cards until I'd already gotten into board games.
Yeah.
And by then I kind of like already had my feel for where I was going with liking games and stuff. And I played maybe a half game with it. That's pretty much my experiences. I would like to play a full game sometime, but I don't actually know anyone locally that would play with me. So nobody in my groups and stuff like that.
Sure.
So maybe sometime, But again, one of the reasons why same as you. Is once I started hearing how the tournaments work and people buying things and all that stuff, I was just like, that sounds like a lot of stuff I just didn't want to get into.
Sure.
But obviously, deserving of the honorable mention, right? I mean, it's
Sure.
such a huge game. Probably got tons and tons of people into board gaming. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you ventured down the Keyforge rabbit hole yet?
no, I guess really I'm just not interested in those kind of card games, the living card games that, the things that keep you. And one of the reasons is because obviously I'm privileged enough to get tons and tons of games. I find it more interesting to open up the new game and learn it than just play the same game 100 times over and over and over, get new stuff over and over and over.
Right.
It's even rare that I get expansions for games I really like because I'll go back to those games I really like every now and then. But, I play like a new game, then an old game, new game, old game. It's so, yeah, I just never really got into games like that.
Cool.
It'd be
It's
interesting.
good.
Gotten close.
It's worth it. It's Magic without the crap. There's no mana. There's no like drawing the cards and not having the right cards to play. It's good. It's worth giving a shot. Plus the fact that the decks are all unique and there's no
I
duplicates
really
in the
like
world.
that.
It's fun.
Yeah, that was cool. I got close with the the Star Wars one.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Star Wars
Yeah.
again. It's going to be the Star Wars channel. I got close with it just because I could really get into collecting Star Wars stuff, right?
Sure.
But the game for me was good, but not good enough for me to play over and over in different ways. So.
Right.
All right. So that was your mention. I guess we're doing mentions first and then going into.
Yeah, why not?
My mention is Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's still new. It's very new and stuff. I mentioned earlier about the Indiana Jones thing and stuff. Big part of my childhood. Loves doing stuff. I used to bury treasure in my yard as a kid, and then draw maps and stuff as to where they go. Who knows where all that stuff is now? I never dug it up. But
It's still out there?
Yeah, and it was just like shoe boxes wrapped in duct tape so it wouldn't get bad, filled with like coins from my parents' coin jar or something, just stupid stuff. But yeah, that's what you did when there was no internet.
I was doing that earlier.
So I even went as far as like my brother and I got a stick and took tinfoil, made the little headpiece that goes on the stick to find where the thing was buried and all that, ridiculous. So that theme, love that theme. It's adventurous. And Arnak has all these mystical creatures and stuff guarding the ruins and stuff. So it's covered under fantasy. Cool. But it's such a new game. It's got that new smell to it that I didn't feel like it could go into the list, right? It needs to be around for a while, and I have to know that I'm going to come back to it several times to go into a list.
Fair enough. Yeah, you've been talking about it. I need to play it. Still need to play it.
So you're number 5.
So this is a reach, and I don't know if you've heard of it. I think the other ones you've probably heard of. I think this one maybe not. It's an older game, 2012, from the Lamont brothers. It's called Spellbound.
I've heard of it. I do not know it.
It's great. It's attention to detail in the minis. Like the pieces are handmade. It's a very limited quantity. I like that there's a lot of fires you need to deal with. And by fires, I mean like a lot of things going on that you got to make sure it doesn't happen. Super fun. The world in it it's cool. You should look up some of the minis or the witches in it. But it's a fun game.
Huh.
And I played it a long time ago, tracked it down. And it's still that game that when I think of fantasy, I think of that world.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do in it? What
It,
like, how do you win? Kind of
it's
thing.
a set collection game. There's these there's a I forgot what the thing in the center is called, but there's this track that's going up. It kind of reminds me a lot of the what we talked about, it was a couple of weeks ago with the Queen's Gambit, where there's so many things going on and you really feel like, so there's this one track that you got to make sure like doesn't get all the way to the end, but then there's these other tracks where you're trying to get like the set collection and the right cards in order to do this thing, to make this thing happen, while the witch is kind of just messing with you. It's really, the balance of it was really cool.
2012. Yeah, that's an old one.
Yeah.
Hasn't been who published it? Do you?
I think it's just the Lamont brothers did their own thing. I don't know if it was under anything. Most of their games were high quality, limited run that you really only got at Essen. I don't even know if they went anywhere else with their games. Dragon Scroll was another one. There was a gnome one where the game actually came with a gnome. Think of like a Smurf hut, but it came with a hanger on the back that you could hang it on your wall, and then you'd like climb up. There was a board, but then you would climb up the thing, up the mountain. Yeah, their production value is just through the roof. I loved everything about them.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah, they're good.
Cool. Yeah,
Yep.
look at that. My number 5 is Vindication.
Ooh.
I don't know if you've played that one or not. Have you?
No, I'm trying to get it, but it's like $400,000 to get a copy, and I'm not.
Oh, really?
It's ridiculous.
I can get you one.
Okay.
Kickstarter one, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'll double check it. So here's what happened. I kickstarted it, and then I forgot that I kickstarted it. And then I ran into the creator at Gen Con. I was introduced to him. We talked and stuff. I said, that looks amazing. He showed me like the game. He had it, his, I guess, copy from the printer or something. It hadn't come out yet. I said, that looks amazing. I'm sorry I missed the Kickstarter. Totally forgot I backed it. And he was like, oh, well, you can get on the, the pledge manager or something right here. I jumped on immediately from his description and backed it on my other email. And then one day, 2 games showed up, 2 different boxes. I went, oops. And the weird thing is the people in the pledge manager got a slightly different copy. So I got to choose which one. I mean, it was which mini was in which. So one of them has a mini that has like a big boulder guy, and another one had a mini that had like something else. And so I opened up that one, and I haven't opened up the Kickstarter version. I guess they're, I could try to sell it and stuff like that, but I'd much rather give it to somebody who, or at least for whatever I paid for it, if you wouldn't mind paying that. I could look at what it was, but I don't need to upsell stuff. So
sure. Yeah, if someone explained that to me, I looked, it's online. Like I think it's on Tabletopia or one of the tables.
Oh, is it? That's cool.
And they brought me through like I watched a video on how to play it. They talked to me about like the balance of the game and like the components and everything. And I was like, well, yeah, that has to be on my table immediately. And when I went to look for them, they were just sold out everywhere, and they just seemed too expensive to jump in without playing it first, right?
Yeah, the theme is fun. I mean, the theme is like a neat idea. Basically, you're a despicable, awful person so bad that your crew is throwing you overboard.
Yeah.
And when you wash up on shore, as everybody else has coincidentally, washed up on shore of this island, you decide to try to better yourself and become a better person. And you do that, by fighting monsters and training and all that stuff, making friends and all that. But it's very good at being one of those hybrids of Euro and American theme kind of stuff,
Right.
You can feel the theme while you're still getting the pleasure of a real game of balancing stuff and spending resources to do things. It's really good.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'll try to get you that game.
That would be amazing. Thank you. 5, 5, 4, 4. Like you go 4 and I'll go 4. Or do you want me just to go right to 4?
Right. Yeah, we'll bounce back and forth. So my number 4, okay. I wrote them out of order, so I'm having to find it. There it is Everdell.
Oh, okay.
And have you played Everdell?
I set it up. I learned it. I haven't played it proper, but I've set it up and learned it.
My first experience with it was funny because I played it at BGG. It just came out. It was like hot. I waited for it to get on the shelf and I grabbed it the minute someone, and I took it back to read the rules and learn it with everybody there, which I don't like to do. I like to learn the game and then bring it to game group kind of thing. But if you're at a convention, obviously. So I'm reading it and kind of reading it quickly and all. And I skipped one rule that made it a very unique experience. I skipped a rule where you pull back your workers at the end of the season.
Right.
So I thought that when you place a worker, that's it. That worker takes up that spot for the entire game.
Oh.
Period. We had a very hard game. Like, it was really rough. The rules are that you can build like 15 cards for your city, and that's it. I think I got 6 cards out, and everybody else got maybe 4 or 5, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, oh, this is a rough game. And then we went through the rules, and Aaron was like, you missed this one little rule. And so I was like, oh, no. So I thought about how the game would act without that rule, and I bought it just thinking, I'll probably like this. And then when we played it without it, of course, it was a great game.
Right.
So I played it on extreme hard mode the first time, and now, I'm very happy. I have all the expansions too. So.
Nice. You got the wooden tree too?
I don't have a wooden tree now. I mean, the tree in itself is excess, right? You don't really need that at all, but
right.
I do really like it. The only thing, and I'm going to try this next, the only thing I don't like so much about it is you can just have a game where you don't get any cards that make any sense, right? So I've heard about a variant that people have been playing where they take all of, if you're not familiar, they have basically structures, buildings, and they have creatures. And if you have the building, you can build a creature for free. But sometimes you get it all out of whack. You get all the creatures first, or you get the creatures but not the buildings for them, or So some people have been doing a variant where they separate the decks, and when you draw, you can choose from the structure or from the creatures. And I want to try that next.
That's interesting.
I think that will quash the only little quibble I have with the game. So
cool.
Right. And technically, that's a house rule, and I've rallied against house rules before, but I will try it just to see because it sounds interesting. And I've played the game over 10 times, so I feel that's fair.
Cool. They have what? 3 expansions?
Let's see. They have Pearlbrook. I think they have 3 expansions. Pearlbrook was their first one, and then they have 2 after that. One with a rabbit and one with. They have some mini ones too, like a little bit of cards that have like carnival stuff, and it's hard to say because I got the Kickstarter version when they came back again, and they had it all combined in a way. So there's a lot of stuff for it.
Cool.
And your number 4?
So my number 4 just recently got a second edition on Kickstarter that I'm waiting for, and I'm very excited about it. I don't know. I hope it's not changed too much because this one is just fantastic the way it is. Dungeon Fighter.
I don't know that one.
Oh, yeah. So it's a cooperative dexterity dungeon game, but there's a target on the table, and you got to bounce your die onto the target to do damage to the boss. But then there's a dungeon that's shuffled out in like 3 cards, and you can choose which way you want to go. Like the easy way really doesn't get you many rewards, but if you go the hard way, they get hard. And the people, the monsters in the dungeon that you're fighting will make you like bounce the die from your knees, or like toss it under your leg, or like take 3 steps back, and you got to bounce it over a card. It's just super fun.
It sounds like one of those games that would be really loud at a convention at like 2 a.m.
You'd probably get some laughter and some yelling, yes, but not as loud as like Happy Salmon, right?
Oh gosh,
yeah. Happy Salmon at 2 a.m. You know where that's coming from.
I just digress right here. I not ran a booth, but I was part of running a booth right across from Happy Salmon's booth at BGG Con, and you couldn't hear anything. I was trying to teach a game, and it was just la, 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 just constantly. So I have flashbacks about that game.
Yeah.
Although it was fun. They taught us the game after hours. I was like, okay, it's fun. So.
It's super fun. And there's 2 different decks, so you can mix them, and you got the regular colors and the pastel colors, and there's a silent mode where you're not allowed to talk.
Yeah. You mean everybody or just one person?
Everyone.
Huh.
So there's the whole yelling and craziness, right? But then there's the variant, which is you're not allowed to make a sound. So you got to signal like fist bump or happy salmon.
Do you get classes or something like that?
No.
So you're not like playing a character or anything in it whenever you're doing.
Oh, I thought you meant happy salmon.
Oh.
Like, no, there's no classes in happy salmon, Chris. What are you talking about?
Let's go back to your number 4.
Yeah. So Dungeon Fighter.
Dungeon Fighter.
Yeah. You play as you in a dungeon, and then you're fighting other creatures. They're in the first edition. There's 4 expansions. Each one of them is one of the elements, so fire, water, wind. In the new one, they kind of pushed them together, and I'm curious how the different boards are going to play out, and what other rules they've changed or altered. But the base game, it's super fun. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but you can buy, like, you get gold for what you do, and then when you get to a shop, which is in the dungeon, you can then buy weapons for yourself. Yeah, there's shops in the dungeon. You can buy different weapons, a better bow, a better sword, and the sword will let you like do different things, and you can, if you bounce it twice, you get double the points or double the hits, or it's fun.
It makes me wonder if the shop owners in that dungeon have like a little, they like send some more goblins in there so that they'll buy some healing potions. Like that seems a little shady to me.
Oh, you ever play or ever hear of Dungeon Bazaar?
I've heard of that. I haven't played it.
Yeah, you're running a booth,
yeah,
but you're selling off all the stuff of the people that died in the dungeon.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, Dungeon Fighter number 4.
Very cool. I can't wait till we finally have conventions again and we can meet up and play some of these.
We won't get anything else done. It'll just be 24 hours a day for the 5 days of just playing everything we've mentioned in these episodes.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Perfect.
That's the point. So you're number 3. We're bouncing back.
Yeah, so my number 3, I think, to this day, I don't think I've ever beaten it. I've played it probably the most as like a setup. I want to beat it, run 2 players type of game. Like I want to do it. The art is great. The gameplay is super sleek. Ghost Stories.
Oh, okay. I kind of thought of that one actually.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, I've never beaten it.
No, but you still play it. You still go back and play it.
I've gotten maybe 80% close.
Oh, it's so difficult.
It's really tough. But yeah, I think that's one of the first. That's not, well, it's in the realm of the first of the cooperative games that I started playing, and after that I was like, oh, all these others are kind of easy. It's possible to win. So it's always still on the shelf of haven't beaten that yet. But
right.
I'm glad to hear you haven't either.
Oh no, never. I haven't played with either of the expansions, the white and the red, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone told me that it's easier with one of those. I don't remember what the expansion was or whatever. So that'd be interesting to try, but I don't know if I want it easier. I like the challenge, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
I didn't really think about because the word ghost instantly puts it in like a horror thing for me, but you're right. It's definitely more of a mysticism kind of fantasy thing. Yeah.
And it was on the list, so it counts.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we use the BGG website and just hit the fantasy advanced search to see. That way we wouldn't argue, oh, it's not in there. There is one game in there that I argue is not fantasy, which is Time Stories. I hope it's not on your list. But it's fine if it is. But that's sci-fi. You're time traveling from the future. It doesn't matter if you time travel into a universe where they have magic or something. You use science to, whatever. Anyway.
Don't get negative, Chris. Don't get negative.
I'm not going to get that. All right, so my number 3 is Five Tribes.
Oh, I just played that this weekend.
Did you for the first time?
No.
Oh,
I played it a few times, but I haven't played it in a while, and I wanted to introduce it to someone. So
yeah, it's a great game. And I always play it with the expansion, the Purple People one. I can't remember what it's called now. And because I always play it together, I don't have to think about it. I don't know if you've played with the expansion or not, the one that adds the new color, the Purple People and stuff like that. But it just makes it just a little bit more thinky, which it's already a very thinky game, you know.
yeah,
I just like that I really enjoy games that every single turn I have to kind of work it out. And I have to balance that. Okay, I can't look at this too long because I don't want to AP. I don't want to like make people sit there and all. And luckily, nobody I play with does that either. But I definitely can see that it would be a situation. You know, that's the problem people have said is with that game. And there's no way around it because the board changes before it gets to your turn. You can't always anticipate. But I always try to think, okay, I'm going to do this, but if that messes up, that's my second one.
Right.
That usually works. And I usually play it only 2 players, so you know.
Right.
Have you played it as a 2-player?
I have, and actually I have a question which you might be able to answer. I didn't go searching for this, but you might know, and it just came up. When you use the assassin,
Right.
and let's say you got 2 assassins off the board and you count 2 away and that tile is empty, do you get to claim it, or do you not? Do you only claim it if the assassin does their ability?
You mean if you empty it by assassinating?
Let's say it was emptied, or you choose a tile that's already empty.
Oh no. You have to actually assassinate someone. If you remove it and make it empty, that's what lets you
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's how we played
That's
it.
the way I've always
Yeah, that it makes sense if you read the rules that way. So
yeah. And that's the first game that I was like, who made this game? And it was Bruno Catala and or Catala. I'm not sure exactly how to say the last name, but then I started looking back and go, oh, I like Cyclades and all this other stuff he's made. You know, so he became one of my favorite designers after realizing that.
yeah, we played that right after we played Mr. Jack, which is another Bruno game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So now I do my number 2.
Now you do.
Which again is out of okay. So a little caveat with this one. Well, I felt kind of bad about putting it on here because I worked on it. I actually worked on this game and did some development and little minor graphic design stuff with it. But it's Dwellings of Elderville. Everdell and Elderville messing me up on my same list. But yeah, and I've talked with you about this before. You know, I did some of the graphic design work and stuff like that. But it's still a game that I think has taken, again, the same thing as Vindication. It's a blend of the big theme, giant theme stuff with Euro mechanics meshed together very well. And one of the things I like about it the most is that the combat, while it's still dice, while there's dice in there, and it can be pretty swingy, isn't that punishing. You know, you can be like, oh, I lost a thing. Okay, I get a sword. I go on, do my thing. It's no big deal because they allow you to do the action first, and then you do the combat. If you didn't get to do for those of you who don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't. It's been all over the internet for half a year. But anyway, for those who don't know, worker placement and tableau building kind of game. So when you place your worker in a place with someone else, of course there's going to be a battle, but you get to do that action. You're not denied that. So you don't miss turns. You don't lose that. So it's not as punishing as people think because of the whole monsters and battle and all that stuff. I think it's been a good surprise for a lot of people who thought it was going to be nothing but combat-y stuff, but find a real good meaty Euro game in there.
Yeah. The production value on it is stellar too. I mean, the art is great. The pieces are great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all due to Peter Vaughn, who was the developer on that. I mean, he spent a year basically fine-tuning every little bit of that, maybe more than a year actually. So yeah,
Maybe he's watching.
sometimes he does. I know he watches afterwards, because it's funny, sometimes he says, oh, I agree with what you just said here, and I was like, I didn't just say that, that was yesterday.
Yeah, he'll catch us on the Discord.
Yeah,
I know that. Yeah,
which will be in our description of this video once we're done.
sure will. And where we'll be after this video is done.
Yes, we always go there afterwards and chat for about 20-30 minutes about stuff. So if you want to join us, to go to the Bat Cave, and that the Bat Cave is the room. Okay, so that was my number 2.
Yep. So my number 2 is not going to surprise anybody. It was already mentioned in the Facebook group. It's Lords of Waterdeep. Love it. I love it. It was one of the earlier games that I was introduced to. And you and I have talked about what it's like in our heads when we take our meeple and we put it someplace. Like,
right.
Little Carl is going to go over here and take whatever at the plinth. Like, that's in my head. That was just, but I very rarely will play it without both the Skullport and the Scoundrels expansions. It's almost a must now. Unless I'm introducing it to somebody, it's really not that much of a step up. Wrapping your head around the corruption tokens, I get. Otherwise, there's just more places to do more cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it has to be played with the expansions. It's too good of an expansion not to be played with. In fact, I would put it as like at least in my top 3 expansions of all time for what it did for the whole game.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely have to play with the expansion. Not that the original game is bad without the expansion, but it just made it so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really good pick. It was one of the first ones that popped in my head. Got it right there. I know, obviously fantasy. When you say fantasy, the first thing that pops in your head is, the old Dungeons and Dragons tropes and stuff like that. So, yeah, good pick.
Thank you.
So now we're doing your number 1.
My number 1. I've been waiting for this. It's Arkham Horror.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yep.
I knew what you were doing there.
We may have talked about why, but it was my introduction into the modern board game. I was my literal neighbor was big into board games, and we always used to run into each other in the randomest of places, like online at the market or whatever. And he was always trying to get me to come over and play this game called Arkham Horror. And he would try and explain this cultist thing with this Cthulhu thing that wanted. I'm like, nah, like I don't want to get sacrificed tonight. Like and literally right next door. And then one day I did it, and it's been literally life changing. Walking in, seeing their kitchen table with this gigantic board with an expansion board, a TV tray with all these stacks of cards. And on the other side of the table was another TV tray with all these stacks of cards and all these monsters. I'm like, what am I even doing here? Like, where are the dice? I want to roll and maybe flick a ball down at like Fireball Island type thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's been my favorite game. I keep it on my kitchen table. I made a thing for, I think I have 6 copies of it. I have 2 base, 1 with the base and Dunwich, 2 with all of the stuffs, just in case. You never know, right? But yeah, it's been my number 1. It will always have a play. And then further down the road, so like Richard Lanius is one of the designers on the game, and I got to meet him at Dice Tower Con, and I was super fanboy. I want to sign up to have him like teach the game, and this is going to be great. I'm going to roll dice. I'm going to save the world from Cthulhu. And I rolled like absolute trash. None of my stuff were successes. I got stuck in the library because there were monsters all like, it felt horrible that I finally like got to play and like rolled like dunnage. And then over the years of like that, still talked about it like afterwards. It was just funny. And then I met him and developed a friendship and talked about designing a game. And now my name is on a box with him, which is just super cool. So it just makes Arkham Horror mean that much more to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see, especially with that story. I already knew that you loved it and everything. I was like, that's going to be his number one. The minute I saw it on the list, I was like, oh, I know what his number one is. But not to dismiss it. I mean, it's a lot of people's number one. I mean, my sister-in-law is the one who owns it, and we play it all the time. And she's got all these expansions, and it's such a big ordeal to set up and stuff, you know, that it's the only game that when I show up to the game group, that if it's getting played, she's already started the setup process. It's already, because it takes a while, right? And for all the things that I feel that are flaws and whatever and stuff like that, I have still had fun, a lot of fun in it. I've also had the occasional game where I can't get out of the library or the university in my case. Or I had one where I just looked at a tapestry and died. Like, that was it. It was like, oh, you look at tapestry, character gone. I was like, okay. Do you not, so what's your opinion, just to digress a little bit, what's your opinion of Eldritch Horror then?
I like it. It's I don't know. It didn't do it as much. I don't know if I'm not an Eldritch hater. I enjoyed it. It almost feels as if the encounters are a little bit longer and more in-depth because you get to do something, and then based on that, you get to do something else, which is kind of cool. So it's like 2 encounters in one. Right. The ticketing system was good. The traveling around the world, it's good. It's just, for me, it's not Arkham.
Yeah. That's right. I actually thought the design was a little, well, not a little, actually a lot superior to Arkham, because you don't have the missing turns, lost in the void or whatever it is thing.
Lost in time and space.
Yeah, lost in time and space, which is a big thing that I don't like in any game, right, where people miss turns. And you already described some of the, I feel like the story elements felt a little more like you're not trapped in a library. Basically. So I prefer Eldritch over Arkham, but especially with the nostalgia and thing, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's good. I think if the person who's running Arkham knows what they're doing, then the game shouldn't take as long as most people think, right? Like, I don't want to play a game for 4 or 5 hours. It doesn't take 4 or 5 hours. You're playing it wrong. But if you have someone that can keep the game going and the characters are getting into like the story, then, and it also depends on how you play, right? Like Richard has some house rules up on BGG. That's the way he plays the game. Like you start the game with a gate face down, and there's just certain things he does that kind of makes the game feel a little bit better. But better is a little, that comes across wrong, but better.
That's interesting. I'd be interested to try that. Next time I'm going to play it, I'll ask you for that link.
Sure. I'm actually going to set up a game for a friend of mine here in town. I've been meaning to do it. I think he might be watching. But I found out that it's on Tabletop Simulator, which will make it easier than me setting up 4 cameras, one at the board, one at the like cards or whatever. So I'm going to play around with that and set up a game. So
that's pretty cool. I mean, when it comes down to it, there are a lot of games that if you just look at mechanics and stuff like that, they might not be, you know, top tier or whatever, but the experience that you get from some of these games, like I've mentioned Talisman before, it's not a well-designed game, but I've had so many just like sitting across, laughing with, like, I've played it with my family and stuff, like all the nostalgia and stuff. I'll never say, oh, it's such a great design game. But I will say that it's a good game because of those experiences that it generates.
Right.
So, you know, there's you know, it's like, I won't even get it. I almost went Star Wars and I'm not gonna. So anyway, digression over, going back to my number one is Root.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this is actually the opposite of what you were just talking about, how there's nostalgia behind yours and it did so much for you, and You have all these great experiences, and I have great experiences with Root and stuff too. But for me, the reason why it's number one is because the design value of the game to make all of these factions, even the expanded ones so far anyway, the ones that I've played, even the expanded ones function so well against the other ones. It just blows my mind every time I play it. And I've played it on Steam, has a version, a virtual version. It's beautiful. It's the best app, board game app I've ever played. I've heard other people say that too. And it's just, I think I also talked about one time, when we were talking about narrative. When you play the Vagabond, which is just a little raccoon guy that walks around and stuff, you really get a sense of a story.
Right.
You don't get it so much with the other factions. You kind of do. You remember, I did this and moved over here and stuff. But as the Vagabond, you come out of the clearing and you go into a ruins and you find the item and then you trade with these people and they become your friends. Like, it creates such a little narrative story that's what I kind of attach to. Right. And I love playing the other factions too. But if I'm looking for something like that, that's who I want to play, right? It's just the intricate and delicate design of all those factions working together or working against each other in what feels like a balanced way. Midway game, it doesn't feel balanced. You got like somebody's way over here 20 and I've only got 3 points. But if you play it through, you start seeing, at the end I start doing this kind of thing. And it's very interesting. Always enjoy it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
From what I know about Root, its introduction is limited because you have to know all of the factions in order to teach it, which seems daunting unless you know it. Like, trying to sit up with new people to learn that is a task. But why Root over Vast?
I have Vast. I have not learned Vast.
Okay.
And here's how old my shelf of shame or opportunity or whatever you want to call it. I don't care what you call it. Here's how old it is. I got it when it was new, like right from it. So long ago. If it was a Kickstarter, I get it from a Kickstarter. And it went on the shelf, and I was like, I'm going to learn that. And then it stayed on the shelf for a while because that's what happens to a bunch of these games. And then Root came out, and I was like, I'm not going to let that go for long. So I actually learned it before I got it. A friend of mine taught me. And then I got it and stuff. And then now I'm worried that Vast won't hold up as well for me as Root did. It's like seeing Terminator 2 first and then being told you need to go see Terminator 1. Like, yeah, maybe I do, but is it better? Like, maybe it is for some people and stuff like that. But, and I love the idea, that everybody has a different way to play, a different way to win and stuff like that. And they play off of each other. Same idea, right? I think it's more of a dungeon crawler than it is a fighting kind of war game, right?
Yeah, for the most part, right? You got the cavern opens up, and then when you play all the tiles, the cavern starts, or the cave starts closing in on you.
Like, somebody can play the cave, which is hilarious. And yeah, I want to. I definitely want to. I just have no time to. It's on.
I'm just curious if you had played Vast, what Root had over Vast, because I've played Vast, I haven't played Root, and they seem similar, and I'm curious if Root did it better. That whole like asymmetrical, like really asymmetrical, everyone is completely plays different. If it did something that was that much better than Vast.
Yeah, well, since I haven't played Vast, I can't really speak to that. I have heard other people argue one way or the other. Basically, if you, and it's strange because I'm not a big war gamer. I grew up playing Axis and Allies and stuff like that. So I do enjoy it, but I wouldn't say I'm a big war gamer. I don't really have that, but and that's in it. There's a war and stuff going on basically between all the factions to some degree. So that's what's different about it. So I guess they would have different flavors. Who knows? Maybe I'll like Vast even more. we'll do this in a year and find out that I still haven't opened Vast.
Yeah, we'll do an anniversary edition and we'll revisit our top 5 fantasy and see what happens.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, so, well, okay, we keep talking about being an hour, and it is actually an hour, but we have some other things on here. Let's find out if we want to push it or not. Is there anything on this list, I think we're both looking at the same list that we talked about, that we want to go over real quick?
I actually didn't pull up the list. I wrote down what I thought we'd get through, and we got through half of what we got through, what I thought we'd get through. So I'm pulling up the list now.
We can continue if you want. I'm fine with it. The one thing, well, you know what? We can talk about our table presence, what we've been playing, right?
Yeah, sure. That's fine. And we'll save the gameplay for, we'll just push gameplay to something else.
Yeah, I'm not exactly clear unless you want to bring that up and define what you wanted to talk about on there, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it since pre-show, since you had internet down. But
yeah, it's super windy here. Yeah, so my what I put in the show notes was the idea of Star Wars and Marvel DC. So the idea of canon, something being canon, and something, what Star Wars did is they took canon and they made it legend, and then they started like pulling from the legend back into canon. So my question, or I guess what I wanted to talk about, and we can save this and maybe people want to chime in afterwards, is it because Marvel and DC have a multiverse and Star Wars doesn't? So I feel like with WandaVision and with Infinity Gauntlet or the Infinity Saga, that there are things that exist in comics that exist. And it's not like Disney took them and said, nope, these don't exist anymore. These are just legends. And now here's our canon. So like the Infinity War, right? And Thanos doing what he was doing for death to try and court death is completely different than what we see in the movies now. And is that because there's a multiverse and they both exist together, where in Star Wars, like the legends of the stories of Han Solo and the stories of Lando Calrissian, like that's all legend now. It's not considered canon. And I'm just curious if like the multiverse is what does it for that or not.
all right, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't pick that up from what you wrote, so I didn't know where you were going with that. No, that's interesting. I think you're right. The reason why Marvel and DC even get away with doing something different in film than they did in comics is because they have this different universe, basically, that or even different studios making movies, right? I mean, now we got, I guess it's spoilers. So now we got 2 different Quicksilvers to look at, you know.
Right.
And there's a blending of the universes and all that stuff. So really, is it multi-universe if you can blend them? Like we know that Spider-Man has a multi-universe thing, right?
Right.
So if they are connected in some way, it really is just all one canon, right? Anyway. But yeah, Star Wars, you're right. They have legends and then they have what's canon. I think that got started because, so there was a book that came out. I don't know if you ever read it, but there was a book that came out almost right after the 1977 New Hope Star Wars called Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I actually have it, and it was written by someone not George Lucas, and it was approved before they realized how big Star Wars was going to be, really. And before George Lucas really knew that he wanted to control the narrative and all that stuff. So there's a book out there called Splinter of the Mind's Eye, in which it's supposed to happen right after A New Hope. Luke and Leia get together. They didn't know, right? After episode 4. I don't think they like get together, but I mean, like they're like, oh, you know, I have feelings for you and all that stuff. They get together. I think, I don't want to spoil the book, but I mean, it's 50 years old, so whatever. And I'm not even sure if this is true, but I think at the end, somebody huge dies. I think like Darth Vader gets killed by Luke Skywalker. Was never his father, of course, anything like that. It was just all totally different. And so whenever he decided to, like, I'm going to carry this on, there were things like that. I think he had to say, that's not part of what I'm doing.
Right.
You know? So that's not canon, basically. I don't know if there was ever even that, like, was there that concept before Star Wars did it? I mean, there's obviously IPs and stuff before that, you know, like Doctor Who and things like that. Oh, you get a little frozen on us. I hope we didn't lose you. If that's the case, then good episode. We might have lost the internet from Mike's end, and he's the one that controls the YouTube. So let me see if we're still alive. Well, I'm still talking on the live, so. Well, yep, sounds like we're lost.
Oh, no, I'm back.
Oh, we are. Hey, there you go. Great. Hey, we went a whole hour without any glitches, so it's not
damn
too
it.
bad. So, where did I lose you at?
I don't know. Darth Vader dies.
Yeah. So anyway, I think he early on had to figure out that he had to find a way to dismiss all the fan stuff, all the pre-approved stuff that he didn't realize. Yeah, I'm watching our live feed right here to make sure we're still going. So we are. I think that's how that got created. And then, you know, Dave Filoni is grabbing from the legendary stuff and bringing in to canon, which is awesome. So
right. So as you know, I'm going through Clone Wars, and there's a lot of that stuff that's pre-Disney, right?
Right.
So I wonder, and I'm about halfway through the series, and then I'm going to get into Rebels, which will introduce Thrawn and that whole thing, which Filoni is now bringing back into like, hey, Disney, this is a thing again, which is brilliant. I think he's phenomenal for what he's doing. I find it interesting that it's okay, not that it's okay, but that it happens. Like, so spoiler, if you're not caught up with Wanda. Here's my tauntaun. I'll keep this up while I'm talking about what's going on. So fast forward till you see the tauntaun go away. The last Wanda Vision episode, we're introduced to Vision, but it's the Vision from the Avengers comics, and he's a little different, right? And I wonder, like, the liberty that they're taking in what exists already, and now what they're going to give us, whether it connects or not, we don't know, but I'm just curious how they just like, yeah, this exists, but this exists too. And you can't do that with, like, I don't know, the new Jedi Academy or the Young Knights or whatever. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. Those are just stories that we're going to forget about until Filoni takes them back and gives us those gifts again. It was something that was like, is that why? Is the multiverse why?
Now I'm curious. I'm curious if you're asking this because recently I've seen some rumors and articles and stuff about them remaking 7, 8, and 9 for Star Wars. Have you seen that?
I've seen that, yeah.
If they did that, would that push the old ones into legend? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there's no concept of a multi-universe or anything like that in Star Wars. I'm not, personally, I don't think they need to do that. Just keep making new good Star Wars, right?
Right.
Just, you know, keep moving forward, kind of thing. And I don't think they really will. I think that's just, you know, they know that's a hot button to push for a lot of people who are disappointed in those. But that is interesting that if they did do that, it would essentially create a multiverse. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of books that were written before Disney took over and made those. In fact, I was starting to read those.
Right.
I got to book like, I want to say maybe 18, 19 of what happened after Return of Jedi, whenever they announced that Disney took it and we're making episode 7 and forget about all those books. I was like, great. I just stopped midway of a book. I was like, guess none of that ever happened.
Right.
Some of those I'm happy they didn't happen. Not all of them are great. Some of them were actually really good and better than kind of what they ended up with.
Sure.
That's all subjective. But,
Yep.
so there is a kind of multi-universe because until then, I always thought those were just considered canon.
Right.
But Dave Filoni said that George Lucas told him that he says that only the film and series are canon.
Right.
Period. Doesn't matter if it's a role-playing game, doesn't matter if it's books or anything like that, only those things are canon.
Right.
It's a good way to keep things very, strict as to what's real and what's not.
Sure.
And it makes the Uber fans like us geek out every time we see something,
Sure.
pop up and you're like, oh my God, that's the thing from this,
Right. Right, and I get that Marvel has the MCU, right, which is the cinematic universe, which is different than the MCU, which is the Marvel comic universe. I mean, I don't know how you get around that, but the idea that there's a multiverse, right, which Spider-Man gave us, is great. It's awesome. Doctor Strange is going to kind of hopefully play around with that. I just find it interesting that you can just, this doesn't exist. Wait, what?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to reboot the X-Men, right? So,
Sure.
And bring them into the MCUs. So, and I'm fine with that. Again, same thing with Star Wars. Just keep making more.
Right.
Just give me more. Every time somebody says, nobody asked for this, yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I'm asking for it. Just keep making it.
Yeah.
If it's bad, I'll put it over there and I'll keep going. Doesn't matter.
There's at least 2 people that still want stuff.
Yeah. Just keep making it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what your opinion of Disney is and how they treated Star Wars and stuff. If they hadn't bought it, we still would have no Star Wars since Episode 3.
Right.
Well, we had Clone Wars and Rebels, right? So we'd have those, but how much more of that would we really had?
Right.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't have had Mandalorian, I don't think.
No.
I mean, and that's worth the price of admission right there. I mean, as far as
that's just
plus
absolutely
Rogue
brilliant.
One.
Yep.
So
that's true. Yeah.
All roads lead back to Star Wars with us, apparently.
It does. It really does. Well, it's impacted our lives, right? It impacts how many lives?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. No, that was good. I'm glad you brought it up. And interesting as far as thinking if you ever could really reboot Star Wars in a way, or even a portion of it, how that would create some kind of multiverse or different version of it.
You really couldn't, right? Because you don't have a Doctor Strange character playing around with, or a Doctor Who character, or whatever, playing around with portals and time travel and all that stuff. So could you really have Han Solo meet Han Solo at some point? That would be just mind-blowing stuff.
I mean, you could just say, oh, the Force did blah, blah, blah. But I don't think you even need to.
Yeah.
Like, even if they didn't have, the multiverse with Spider-Man and stuff like that, people just blindly accepted, okay, X-Men, back in 2000 or 99, I think it came out.
Mm-hmm.
X-Men 1 came out and it was slightly different than the comics. And people just, whatever. Nobody was like, oh, Spider-Man with the multiverse. They were just like, yeah, it's just different. They didn't care.
Right.
Just give us more. Talk about games that we've recently played. Or?
Sure. What's the most recent thing you played?
So the most recent thing I played is It's a Wonderful World.
Oh, okay.
I did the Kickstarter for that and got it in, finally learned it and stuff. Have you played that game yet?
I have not.
I thought it was going to be a lot heavier. And I don't say that in a disappointing way. I thought it was because, first of all, the box I got was like this big, all tall and stuff like that. And it's got a campaign with it, apparently. I haven't dived into that, and maybe that's where the bigger comes from. But it kind of has that feel of like Century Spice Road.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like you're you're doing stuff to get cubes and turning those cubes into cards that you're changing it, so it has that kind of feel about it. Although this one is a little more thinking than even that. It doesn't just feel like, oh, I want that, I'll do this to get that. You're building all of these cards at once. So you're kind of going, okay, at the beginning of the round, I'm going to get all these cubes. That's not enough. So I have to save these cards that I want to build, but I also have to spend these cards. Like you have to do all that figuring out before planning and stuff before the round shoots off. And once it shoots off, you better hope you planned it right. The only thing I posted about this on Facebook and people got snippy at me for saying it, but because I only played it once. But after there's 4 rounds in the game, after the first round, both Aaron and I went like, oh, we know who's going to win. Like I thought it and she thought it, but you don't say that during the game because you don't want to give stuff away.
Sure.
But I thought, I've got this in the bag. I won the game.
Right.
And she was like, he's going to win. And it happened. And I'm thinking, I don't know if that was just like an outlier or if we're going to have that experience all the time. And the problem, or maybe it doesn't happen with 2 players, But the problem is that it's the kind of game that rewards doing well without having any kind of catch-up mechanic. So if you happen to hit the things that you're trying, not happen to, if you plan out and hit the things you're trying to, then you get this award that makes it easier to continue and easier to continue and easier, while the other person struggles to catch it. And you just start, doing that kind of thing. That's my one experience on the one play. That's that whole caveat thing, grain of salt. I definitely will try it a few more times, see if we keep getting that. In fact, I'm almost tempted to write down who I think is going to win after each game, after each first level or round of each game, to see if we're continually right each time.
Right.
It might not be that easy to determine, but
yeah, it could just been the first experience.
Yeah. So I'm open to that and stuff, but that was my experience. I did not see a way for her to catch up.
Interesting.
Like if I was in her, it's not the player. If I was in her position, I would not see a way for me to catch up.
Right.
It's interesting that way.
So there was nothing that Aaron could have done to stop you.
Yeah. See, it's got a very solitaire feel about it.
Okay.
Well, yes and no. It's got the drafting thing like Seven Wonders does, where I pick a card, hand you the deck, and so on. So you can hate draft, but in like most games, if you're hate drafting, all you're doing is like dragging both of you down. You're not doing anything, because those are cards that you can't build, kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't generally hate draft. Maybe that's something that if she had employed that more, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to give a few more tries and stuff. And it probably wasn't fair to say something like that on Facebook after just one play, but whatever. It's Facebook.
Well, that was your experience after one play.
Yeah.
That's not wrong. Yeah. It's what you experienced.
And I'm not, someone with any influence.
Right.
Plus, I said it was after one play. I wanted people to know that. So.
Right.
But yeah, I played that, and right before that, I played Sleeping Gods.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about it? I'm about to get on a little rant, just to warn you.
Oh, God.
Not a rant. I won't take up our time on that. Okay, so because I've only heard great things about this game so far, and I agree with most of those things. The story is interesting. It's, keep kind of like, oh, let's play one more turn. Let's play one more turn to see where the story goes and all. But the biggest drawback I have, which I haven't heard anybody really mention, is the walkthrough. This game has, how, and you've heard me say stuff about rule books before, how I just want to learn the rule book and get to the end. Mm-hmm. Don't play around with me. Just teach me the game and get me to the fun game part. They insist that you do a walkthrough. They don't give you a choice. If you don't do the walkthrough, you don't get the beginning of the story, which tells you why you're even doing any of this stuff. It's a whole big open world walkthrough. What's a sandbox world?
Sandbox. Yep.
Yeah. But the story that gets you into that world is in the walkthrough. And the walkthrough is supposed to teach you some of the rules, not all the rules.
Right.
When you're finished with the walkthrough, in which case they tell you all the choices that you make and all the things that you do. So you didn't really get to make the choices. They're showing you what happens if you make this choice and stuff. So it means every story begins making those choices, which I'm not crazy about. But then at the end of the walkthrough, and this is the part I'm upset about, they say, now before you start playing, you need to go read the rulebook. Why'd you put me through the walkthrough if I have to read the rulebook anyway?
Mm-hmm.
What was the point of the walkthrough at all? Now, they do say in the walkthrough or rulebook or something like, you only need to read these chunks if you've gone to the walkthrough. That's not true. There's little bits of that rulebook that aren't quite clear, and you have to go back and go through it. By the time we finished our game after that, we'd gone through the whole thing again. Because it is a well-structured rulebook, I'll give them that. But something comes up, you're like, what is that? That wasn't covered in the little walkthrough we went through and the little bits that they told us to read. So you have to go back and read it. So you're going to go through, I don't know, maybe 4 hours of gaming where you're not 100% sure how this thing goes. It's not a brutal 4 hours. Like I said, it was enjoyable. Story's interesting and stuff, but you kind of like, oh, this is cool. Oh, wait, gotta check this. Oh, this is cool. You gotta check this. It's that kind of experience. After a while, I believe you probably won't have to reference roles and stuff like that. But for all of that, it was an enjoyable experience. I haven't even finished a campaign yet, and it's a really weird thing. There's not like a game. At least it doesn't feel this way. It's not like you're playing a game, and then once you finish the game, then chapter 2 happens and chapter 3 and stuff like that. It's just like this totally open thing, and a campaign officially ends whenever you run out of like event cards or something. And I think I want to say there's like 12 event cards, so those 12 turns. Maybe it's 16. It might be 16. Something like that. So you just play those and you go, okay, that was a campaign. Do you want to start over? Not start over, but continue basically with new event cards and stuff like that. It's really a strange experience as far as games go, because there's no solid game. If you look at the time on it, it says 20 hours for gameplay.
Right.
Which is like, what? So, but, I see what he means. There's a save. You can save, which is what we ended up doing several times. After playing 2 or 3 hours, we go, okay, it's getting late. Let's save. You save.
Right.
It really makes me want to get a game table that has the top where I can save it, because I have a cat, so I can't leave the game out.
Right.
Any cat owner knows why. So it makes me want to get a game where I can have a top that covers the thing and stuff, because then you can continue it. I'd be into it even more if I could do that. So that walkthrough is my only problem.
Interesting.
It's got some cool combat stuff with it too. That's like a neat. I don't want to just go through all the whole thing and describe it and stuff, but you should check it out. I think you'd like it, especially since you like the Red Raven world and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I love them. I was looking at the intro. I was looking at the rule book. There's a lot there. I'll get through it eventually.
Yeah. Oh, do you have the game?
Yeah, I backed it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, Red Raven games, I almost ought to back everything they do just because I enjoy their game. In fact, it's really weird. I don't think either one of us put either. Oh no, you put Above and Below, didn't you? Or
no, not on my list, but
really,
yeah,
we not talking about. Yeah, it's really weird that it's not in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's. I loved it. I still think it's a great game. I prefer it over Near and Far. Still.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I'm the other one. I like Near and Far more than Above and Below.
I like it. It was enjoying Above and Below so much. I didn't like I just, I don't know. I didn't like the village. Go here, go here, here, go out. All right, go back to the village. Go here, go here, go here, go out.
I could see that.
Yeah,
Mechanics wise, I could see that. I think I like these stories and the way they award you better in Near and Far.
sure. Yep.
Like in Above and Below, it always felt like, oh, you randomly got that story and now you're winning. Oh, now I randomly got this story and now I'm winning, kind of
Yeah.
feel. Whereas
Yeah.
when Near and Far, like you could kind of, like if you went far from the thing, you kind of got more reward, but it takes a lot of risk and stuff to do it.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, we're using a lot of those storytelling games in the game that I'm currently designing, just trying to keep the continuity between the story alive where it doesn't feel so disjointed, and have the reward system somewhat make sense, but not only like, do you do this or do you do that? And you're like, well, I'm going to do this. Great, you get +1, whatever. How, what did I do? What happened? How did I get the +1? Like some of that in storytelling games drives me. Like I guess we fill it in as storytellers. Like I get it, but I want to know I want to know what happens, right? I want to know how did I get that thing, or how did I not get that thing? Like what happened to me when I chose to do this? When I have a choice between A and B, in Above and Below, it's like, all right, do you want to do this? You need whatever it is, 5. But if you want to do this, you need a 9. I'm like, well, the people I have, if I max out my roll, which those that are watching this and have heard me talk about how I roll, know I don't roll well. So I know, like, I'm just, forget it. I'm going for the 5. Is there one less than the 5? Because that's the one I want to go for. But then it was like, I succeeded. Great, you got this. But, like, I'm going to tell the story now. And those moments, I don't know, they kind of take me away from the storytelling game. Right? Like there's a story and I love the story, but like, and we've talked about it and you want to see me get negative, we'll start talking about Tales of Arabian Nights and how those stories are just like, I didn't choose that. You have the Matrix, great. You have the storybook, great. You come across this thing, what do you want to do? And then you pick one of these attributes and you're like, I'm going to do this. Like in this situation, that's what I want to do. And then the story that you read based on the Matrix doesn't even have that in the ability that you're choosing. Like it's totally just a random, what in the hell just happened to me moment. I didn't pick any of it. And then you have Above and Below, which is like, all right, I picked to do this thing. So in my head, the story is like, I went after the thing with the glowing green eyes and I got it. Like in my head, I'm making that story, which I love that about it. And then there's just those moments where it's like, you succeeded, you get +1, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, on the Arabian Nights, I think I talked about that before too. Like, you'll see a guy pickpocketing someone. What do you do? Well, I got swordsmanship, so I will attack him with a sword. Well, too bad he's a genie. Do you have magic? Oh, there was no indication, right?
Right.
And you're right. Above and Below, and Near and Far, they both have a much more, like, you can kind of tell where you're going with the story with your choices. The one thing I will say though, I appreciate design-wise, at least mechanisms. Why it didn't work? Mechanics, mechanisms. All right, that doesn't sound right. At least that I appreciate being told what the difficulty is before I make the choice.
Sure.
But to that, story-wise, it messes me up a little. Because it might be something like, do you save the princess or push the princess off the edge of the cliff?
Right.
Well, maybe I want to play the evil bad guy in this thing, and I want to push the princess off the cliff. But to push her, I need strength 5, and to save her, I only need, dexterity 2. Well, I got dexterity 2, so I guess I'm going to save her.
Right.
Is what you do. So you don't really choose based off of the story. You're just choosing off of what's most likely, usually, that you're going to do. If you really feel like, oh no, there's a huge reward behind this or something, you might choose that. But so that's what you're getting a trade-off with that kind of storytelling, is that Like, yeah, I'm having a more even, less chaotic story going on,
Right.
but it's not exactly one I'm crafting myself just because I want to play a certain kind of character and stuff,
Right.
right?
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
trade.
It's frustrating and definitely a challenge to make something that's that massive and have it mostly connect in some way. Like we're
Mhm.
running into it every time we get together to talk about, and we have a great writer. Keith's been writing these unbelievable stories, and it's going really well, but it's super challenging. Like trying to think of how are you going to get a character, like your character development throughout the game, and have that make sense. And if your character gets a certain something, like if you got the attribute, or if you're known now in the land as the person that pushed the princess off the cliff, how do you make that come back in a relative way later on in the story that makes sense, right?
Right.
Like have it impact something, not just, oh, I got this thing, great, I got a fish, or you got 3 fish, okay, I got 3 fish. But shit,
Yeah,
if I found a sword in the lake, well, I want that sword to do something later. And it's a challenge. It's a really
I think
difficult challenge.
you really need to play Sleeping Gods because they do something really cool with that. They give you all these keywords. They kind of played with it in Near and Far, but they
Right.
do it really well in this one. Like, depending on what your choices are and what you've accomplished, you get different keywords, and you'll come up to a story like almost immediately. You get stuff like this, and I'll say, "Do you have this keyword?" And you'll be like, yeah, I do. And it goes, oh, go over here because this whole new thing is happening, kind of stuff. And it's because, and you have that keyword because, you threw a snake at somebody or something. It's,
Right.
so they've tied their stories together a lot more meaningfully
That's
as
good.
far as what I've played anyway.
Well, they had that in Tales of Arabian Nights too, right? You start off with picking up these skills, but then you got this deck of cards and this the matrix that seems just wonky. I don't know. I'm curious, and we've been directed towards Sleeping Gods because of that reason. Like we're trying to create this thing and have it coherent, like have it make sense. Like, do you have this attribute? All right, great. If not, great. But if you do it, great.
Yeah, Aaron and I are also making a narrative game. Um, and this one has chapters that you play until the end of this, and that's a chapter, and then the next one you play is the next chapter. It's a little more structured. It's not sandboxy, right? But you still run into that. They have to make a decision here, and what are we trying to do? Are we just making an adventure, choose your own adventure, where there's only really one path, or are we allowing them to be this kind of person versus this kind of person again? And the mechanics you need to make to create the sandbox version versus there's only one path is exponential.
Sure.
That's why I think Sleeping Gods is going to do so well, just because it feels, at least so far, and I've heard other people who have played a lot more say the same thing. It feels like they've achieved the sandbox feel without too many heavy mechanics. That rule book looks thick.
Yeah.
If you can skip the walkthrough, I would recommend just skip the walkthrough. Read the story or something, but don't do it. Just read it as a walkthrough, and then just start off where they are. But I don't know. That's kind of house ruley, and it's all based off of my one thing. I haven't, like I said, I haven't heard anybody else complain about the walkthrough. So
Right.
maybe it's just my issues. I have issues when it comes to rule books. We've talked about that.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about that. Don't throw comics, don't throw fun. Just give it a dry Google Doc of turn order and game end, and Chris will love it.
I mean, I'm a graphic artist, so I put graphics and stuff in there. That helps learn and stuff,
Sure.
But yeah, if you want fun, put it off to the side where I can ignore it, and other people can enjoy it. But yeah.
I love it.
So far, I've never played a game that has successfully done the just start playing and we'll teach you as you go thing. In fact, I've never successfully been taught a game that way either. Now, have you?
Well, Magic, I talked about it earlier. Magic was like, shuffle this deck, draw your cards. I'll teach you how to play as
Right.
we go.
When you said play as you go, I kind of went,
Yeah.
I don't know if you could see it, but in my mind, I was like, oh, no, that's.
Yeah. There are a few out there, and I haven't played it yet. I think it's Friedman Freeze, Flea.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, that's different. Okay, that's a different thing. And I will agree, but that's a different thing because the game is learning the game.
Right.
That's different. And it's not even learning the game. He teaches you one rule, and then the next thing is another rule is added to it, and that's the new game. It's not like all those rules existed and you've learned the second rule and now realize you messed up.
Okay.
Like, I think that's something separate. That's not exactly what I was talking about. But
Okay.
and he does it well too. I mean, you can only play it once, but
Right.
It's kind of like what was that fruit one that he did?
Fruit Fair.
Fabled Fruit.
That's it.
I have it somewhere, but like that. I think you're not able to finish, or at least you're not supposed to, or whatever. But the one you're talking about was like a little one, right? Like a little card deck. Like you made like 3 of them.
Yep.
And I played 2 of them. I think.
Yeah, it was like a fast forward series or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was creative, interesting way of doing it. But you can't, at least in my experience, let's just start playing and learn as we go kind of thing is just grueling.
Right.
I'd rather just have 10 minutes of reading a rule book and then go with full game. But everybody's different. I used to have a guy in my group that and this is why I learned games before going to the group, is if you were to start trying, he'd get bored after about 5 minutes of learning the game. He goes, let's just start. We didn't start. We don't even know how to win the game yet. We'll just start doing things. Like some people don't have the patience to learn it,
Right.
So I understand where it comes from, but
it's a skill. Teaching games, reading rule books, it's all a skill.
Writing rule books,
That's a evil skill.
I was helping someone do that just recently, actually. And Erin, like the designer and many things, she is exceptional at taking a sentence that you write and going, these are the different ways this could be interpreted. It's just a wonderful ability to have access to.
Yeah.
Because when I write rules, I just write them off the cuff. I put them in structure and stuff like that, but I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And I say, okay, come over here and show me how wrong this all is. And she'll go, I know what you're saying because she helped design the game or something, or at least worked with me on it. And she'll go, you're trying to say this, but it could mean this, or it can mean this. And I'm like, oh man, so we go through the rules over and over and over again to make sure they cannot be interpreted in any other way. And of course, people will find a way to do it.
Of course. That's English language and grammar. It's crazy. We were watching something last week. I forgot what it was, but the guy said about his daughter that she will make someone a beautiful, wonderful wife someday. And I understand the meaning of it. Like she's going to be someone's wife, like a great wife someday. But the way he said it is that she's a witch and she's going to turn the guy into a wife. And stop, rewind, wait. And the way that it came out, the sentence was, she's going to make someone a wonderful wife someday, or something to that effect. Yeah. It's like, wow, she's going to turn some dude into a wife. Like she's a witch, which there's no witchcraft. It was just a regular movie, but. And then, so one of my pet peeves you'll learn at some point, I don't think you've done this yet, is someone that says that they could care less.
Erin has that same pet peeve, and she hates it when I do it.
Drives me nuts.
Because I couldn't care less, right?
Correct. If you could care less, you would care less.
Right.
Oh, I could care less. Oh, okay. Well, then care less. If you couldn't care less, you're at the bottom of I could care.
That's just funny. You also hate the word literally being used incorrectly.
Literally. Oh yeah.
Figuratively.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I used to let some of that get. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I've adopted the language is fluid,
Sure.
and what's wrong today becomes right later.
Sure.
I mean, in fact, I think they even updated the definition of literally to say sometimes means figuratively.
Sure. Which is the opposite of what the meaning of the word is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, couldn't care less. Could care less, then care less. Like,
Same thing. You know what I mean?
of course. Just like I knew that the father was talking about his daughter being a good wife someday. Like I get it.
Mechanics, mechanism, same thing.
Right. Yeah. It's the English educator in me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, as an English educator, then you should know that English is a language that continues to grow and change, and that's how, by misuse, basically. If everyone used English perfectly how it should be, we'd all be speaking Gaelic or something, right?
Oh, it'd be a mess.
It would never change. It would stay as it was when it was first created.
Yeah, it'd be a hot mess. Mm-hmm. I was originally music education, and I went in for my music what's it called, audition, and I'm taking my theory test, and the woman comes over and says, all right, you're going to be in room XYZ, whatever, and your instructors are going to be Mr. Freeze and Mr. Rogers. And I like quiet room, everyone's taking this like serious test, and I'm like, are you serious? Like laughing, are you serious? Didn't get the joke, and I'm like, all right, whatever. So I walk in like, oh, this is going to be great, Mr. Freeze and Mr. Rogers. So my trumpet instructor was Mr. Freeze, and he was extremely by the book. Every note on the page, everything is the way it is. And then I had a jazz instructor who,
So cold personality.
Cold, very cold personality. And I was playing in the jazz band, and I like the jazz because it's interpretive and you can play what you want and add a solo and maybe do like a little trill, whatever. And then I would play in the lessons for Mr. Freeze, and he would stop. No. You're reading it wrong. Read what's on the page. Don't do anything but what's on the page. The same semester in English, we 33 kids in the classroom. We read a short story. Everyone's like a little bit off on how they interpret this sentence. And well, look at how they say this sentence. That means this later on. And I had such a great experience with a classroom full of different opinions that I gravitated towards English after that. Like at one point I was walking down the hallway and Mr. Free was like, oh, you missed your lesson today. Oh, did I? And I kept walking. Like, I don't even want to, you're done.
See, so you could be a bard. You were this close to being a bard.
I know. And I was saved.
Saved. What instrument?
Trumpet.
Oh, trumpet. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Started as sax. Sax was too easy. Went into clarinet. And then my first lesson in clarinet, it was me and like 8 different girls. And it was 5th grade. And in 5th grade, girls have cooties. So I go up to the teacher and I'm like, like I need to go somewhere else.
I played
trumpet.
My brother played clarinet. I remember distinctly, and wow, we're way off geek stuff, aren't we? Mm-hmm. I remember distinctly in being a small kid in music class, they did this thing where they lined up all the kids, and you would come up and you would say what you want to play, and the teacher would tell you, I think you want this, or kind of thing. And I walked up and I said, I want to play saxophone, because at that time that was the coolest thing you could play, besides guitar, which they didn't have.
Sure.
And he said, no, you don't have the lips for saxophone. You can be percussion. I can't keep a beat. Horrible at it. So that ended any interest in music for me. And I was like, 8?
Yeah. So you had a sorting hat in school putting you into different instrument sections. Yeah. That's interesting.
He would just go, no, I think you're this kind of thing. And that experience, although, like I said, I found out I couldn't keep a beat. It's not like I had much of a future in music.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't have a promising career as a drummer. Yeah.
So, oh well.
Well, if you went that route, we wouldn't have Asking for Trouble. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Sure. I'd be a famous saxophonist. It's probably not right.
Maybe.
You probably still had Asking for Troubles, but I wouldn't have a saxophone back here or something.
Right.
All right. Well, we actually squeezed in everything under 2 hours. I call that a win for us.
I think that's fantastic. The best part is we probably could go another hour or two. Yeah.
And we'll go a little bit longer on Discord if anybody wants to join us.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up. And thanks for watching, sticking with us through our technical difficulties.
Sorry.
And we have no idea what we're going to talk about next week. We should.
I know what we're talking about next week.
Oh, really? What are we talking about next week?
What ends on Friday?
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. I guess we're going to be talking WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wait, don't they have 2 more? No, it's 1 more, isn't it?
Well, there's a rumor.
We'll be talking about something.
So they said someone brought this up on our Discord, right? Jim brought this up on our Discord that they promised new stuff every week, and Cap, Winter Soldier, and Falcon isn't until a week after WandaVision ends. 2 weeks after WandaVision ends. So there's a gap where.
I mean, they could be forgiven for that, but
Sure.
But
it'd be cool.
I think we're just all being hopeful, but.
They have a lot to cover in the next episode.
See, okay, so I never read the whole comic part of the Scarlet Witch stuff. And I was talking to a friend earlier who knows that whole thing very well and has been saying, yeah, it's been all right, but I haven't been surprised by any of this. And he's kind of disappointed in the fact that he hasn't been surprised by it. So I'm kind of glad that I don't know any of that stuff. I don't want to look it up or anything like that. Because if they are sticking very closely to it, that's different than before, right? Like I had read the Infinity Wars and stuff before the MCU came out, like their whole version of it. It was so different. I couldn't guess what was going to happen,
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be that case for him anyway. He's able to guess what happens, but I like the fact that I don't know what's going on, so keep me in the dark.
It's good.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, it's been good. Discord, Facebook, subscribe here, and do all the things that make us look like people are watching.
I'll put Instagram in there too.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That thing. That other thing.
That other thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. That's been fun. I'll see you on the Discord.